Welcome, everyone, to the Economy Creators networking call. We do this on the third Wednesday of every month. So tell your friends, bring your buddies because the more the merrier. And during these calls, not only do we introduce ourselves, which we'll do after the main event, which is one of our Magnet 30 members gets to tell a little bit about more of what they do at a deeper level and share their story, share the person behind the business. And today we have Pat Ackley Roth, and she is marvelous. She's a licensed grief recovery specialist and a certified life mastery consultant under Mary Morrissey, one of my favorites. So I would love to welcome you, Pat, to the floor, and please share. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary. Hi, everyone. Thank you. It's not if you're going to experience grief, it's when. And grief is a change in a pattern where there's a void. It could be as simple as changing homes. Maybe you've been in an apartment and you moved to a house. Well, it's not the same. It's a change in a pattern. Think of if the parent moves because of jobs. The children have lost their familiar home, they've lost their school, they've lost their friends. And so many times people will say, oh, they're kids, they can adjust easier. We don't give them a chance to grieve because they do. And maybe not the same depth that if we lost a spouse or something, but they grieve too. And I think so many times we need to hear them. I know when I was working and a gentleman that I worked with, his name was Mr. Coble. We always called him Mr. C. Well, I was single, raising two kids, no child support. So at Christmas time, he'd always slip me a 20 and say, go get something for the kids. And when he died, I was going to go to the viewing, and my year-old son said, can I go? I said, yeah. My 12-year-old daughter didn't want to go, so I respected both of them. And I took him, and he just went to that coffin. He just looked at it. He said, okay. He was curious. So even though he had never experienced a death before, he was curious, and I believe that that should be addressed. And the next day when I went to work, I caught the Dickens because I took a child to a viewing. I said he has as much right to be there because he had a relationship. I think that's a key word right there is the relationship. If you go through a divorce, that's a broken relationship. The hopes and dreams that you had for that marriage, they died the same as the person died. It might be as simple as a separation. You lost a child. There's like 40 different kinds of loss. Might be a loss in faith. Maybe you've gone to church for a long time and all of a sudden everything changes. You're grieving for what you had. Think of someone that's going through Alzheimer's. When they start going, they change. And say their spouse, they're automatically grieving who they used to be. And then when they physically die, they're grieving them again, a second time. He violated your trust. And so many times when a child loses their trust, it's not just that person. They put up a wall. And it's hard for other people to get in, whether it's a teacher, a parent, another family member. They've lost that trust, and unless they find someone else they can trust, you found your trust in your church. And sometimes people lose faith in their church. That's another loss. Anytime there's a change in a pattern. Think of like COVID. A man loses his job, can't afford his house payment. There goes his house. His wife says, I can't handle this. I'm out of here. She takes the kids and the dog. But you have the poor guy. He's actually grieving 5 different losses at one time. And it's so overwhelming that it's just some people don't come out of that dump. It's emotions. Grief is completely emotions. You think of joy, that's an emotion up here, but grief is an emotion down here. But any event like that can cause a change, even if say you change jobs. It's something you really wanted, but you really miss the people that you worked with before. And it's usually the people we leave behind that we miss, not necessarily the work of the hours or something. We're happy for the new one, but there's still a grief there. Any change there is, uh, say kids, think of kids are leaving home. They're going off to college. There's that big void there. And it could be even if you're married. Sometimes they don't grieve that loss together, and it can cause a separation. And acknowledge at that time you weren't aware. Awareness is a big key. Now, if that happened, you would be more aware and you would understand it and you would handle it differently. You were grieving the loss of your business too. Anytime that, say, our business closes or you have to file for bankruptcy, that's a serious loss. And you do grieve about it. Maybe not openly, you don't go around telling everybody you're grieving, but inwardly, you're feeling that loss. Think about if you had a pet and you had to put your pet down, and then you have guilt. Did I do the right thing? Because you love that pet and you want to do the best thing for it. But that's a serious loss too, because a lot of people, that is our constant companion. I had an aunt that had a big fluffy white cat. And she said the assisted living, and that cat was so much company to her. And one time she saw this red spot on the tummy. And she called her son and her daughter in and said, I think you need to take the cat to the vet. So here they are running around trying to catch this cat. And they're both very tall kids. They finally catch the cat and they take it to the vet. And then the vet calls my aunt and says, I've got some news for you. And she said, do you have to put him down? And he said, no, but the red thing on his belly was a cough drop. But she was ready to put the pet down. She was ready to release him. And so many times when we go through a loss, we're releasing something, but we need to replace it with something. And that's hard transition to do it, especially if it's a person. I have lost 2 children. I've lost my husband, my brother, my parents, my sister. In 2 years, I lost 7 immediate family members. That's why I went to the grief recovery and took the training there. And I had to go to the same program that I take my clients through. And then I understood, because you're in this fog. You think there's something wrong with me. Gee, I'm not normal. It just helps you understand that what you're going through is a very natural process. Everybody grieves differently. All the situations are different. But this made so many answers for me. And I just thought, I want to help other people that are going through the same thing. I didn't have thousands of dollars to pay no therapist for year after year. I thought, well, this is something I can do. So I think sometimes God puts us through these trials so that we can help other people, because our experiences, everybody has a story, and you just don't know who you're going to help by telling your story. And I just want to talk about some of the different things too that, say, like senior citizens. When my mother went to the nursing home, just the hardest part was that she had to give up her sewing. That was her identity. She lost her identity. They lose the home that they've been living in. My mother built that house. So there again, they have different things. Just say if someone gets older, they lose their ability to walk. They're confined to a wheelchair. They're grieving the ability to do the active things that they used to do. And some people will say, well, that's just part of age. Well, maybe it is, but that doesn't address the emotions that goes with it. Because for them, it's a loss. I know when my mother, they sent a letter to her and said, you need to come and turn in your driver's license. That really bothered her because that was her ability. She lost control of being able to do that. And I think as we age, it hits us harder than we realize. I'm going to touch on some of these other ones too. It's just, like I said, you can go to my website and you get all 40 of these, but death of a spouse, which I don't know if it's worse to lose your spouse or your child. I've done both, and they both have their own kind of pain. When my son died, I didn't have support. I didn't have family around or anything, but my church friends, just like you said, Alicia, my church friends were the ones that helped me there. When I lost my husband, I have family up here. It was up here. It was a different story. But I lost him 9 days after I lost my brother. And sometimes when you get several of them like that, you feel like a revolving door and you're just thinking, God, I can't take no more. The one thing I would like to add to that is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book was on death and dying. Those are the stages that lead up to the death. And they're confused with things that happen after the death. Well, I'm in denial. You can't deny it. They've passed. You can't bargain afterwards. It's happened. It's truth. So it's confused a lot of people. I think her work was very good, but if it's done in the right place. Yeah, but it is good. It is good. Yeah. Imprisonment. That's a definite change in lifestyle. And think about the children that are left behind. They're grieving their parent. Maybe they're taken out of their own home and have to go live in an orphanage or with other relatives or something. Yeah, dry those tears. Oh, I love that. Yes. Yes. There's so many books out there that's on grief that it's really neat that we are addressing this. I think this is really a very important issue, and we can't just sweep it under the rug. I don't know. I think as time goes by, my son's been gone for a long time now. He was 23, he took his life. He's been gone longer than he lived. I look at suicide totally different than I did many, many years ago. I have a lot more empathy. When we understand people's stories, we have more empathy for them and we try to understand, even if we haven't experienced it, think of the most painful thing that you've gone through and know that what they're going through might be the worst. Last week, two of my friends lost their husbands. The one was married 67 years. I mean, they had always been together like that, or even death of a close family member. Say you're dismissed from work, you lose your job. Yeah, you're scared how you're going to pay your bills, but also you've lost some part of your identity when you do that. And just find some other ones for it too, because they're so good. A retirement, even though you're happy that you're retiring, it's a change in your pattern. Some people think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my time? Other times you say, I don't know how I ever worked and got these things done. My life is so full now, even just retired. But it's a change in a pattern. Hopefully it's a good thing. How many times have you heard that someone retired and within a couple of years they passed away because they haven't reset their goals? Anytime this, we got to replace it. We've sent it out. We've got to replace it with something else. Changing schools. Kid loses their friends, their school, their teachers. Maybe they've had the same friends all the way growing up, and 7th grade they move. And it's a big change. I think the key thing there is just addressing it more than anything else. Uh, Foreclosure of a loan. A lot of another thing that's going around a lot too, and I'm involved in this group, is living beyond estrangement. Nowadays, it seems to be a lot of children are saying, I don't want anything to do with my parents. Talk about a loss. It's not what you thought it would be. I've lost 2 children. My one remaining daughter is estranged. I grieve who she was. I don't know who she is anymore. But I think we need to acknowledge it. Don't judge, don't dismiss it, but acknowledge it, and address it. Help each other out. In order for people to talk about their grief, they have to feel like it's a safe place. Whenever I coach someone, I don't wrote notes, I don't record. I want them to know that it's total privacy. I have a Hippocratic oath on my wall up here. And I took that when I went to beauty school, and I still carry that through. They have to feel safe in order to come out of that grief and want to make steps forward. Even if they're baby steps, that's okay. At least they're moving forward. And I tell them, even in the Bible, it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it does not say I stalked and pitched a tent in that valley. But some people can get stuck in their grief. And you're thinking, here it has been 5 years and they're still just going on and on. They're stuck. They don't know what the future has for them. But the fear of the future is stronger than the misery they're in at that point. This is familiar. They know what to expect. Once they move forward, they're going to have a lot better life. But the fear of the future and what it might hold is so strong on them. Yeah. Say you gain a new family member, new child comes in. Well, that other kid's been the center of attention. He may be a little kid, but it's a change in pattern. He might strike out in anger, but he is grieving the position in the family that he had before. Or say a mother remarries. She has children. Maybe they don't like the stepfather. Sometimes there's sexual abuse involved. They've lost mobility, they've lost control of their body. Or say someone that's in a wheelchair after a car accident. They've lost mobility. There's so many different areas that we don't realize are grief. And once we become aware of it, it's a big difference. Think of your church. I remember in Florida, I was going to this church and we had a new pastor. I did not care for him at all. He was very domineering. So I found another church. And my friend says, "Oh, he's fired. You can come back." I said, "No, now I've got a church attached to this church." I grieved the one I left because I had been going there for a long time and I had dear friends there. But I didn't want to flip flop around. And it wasn't long before that church folded. So I'm glad that it didn't change. But I missed my friends. When I moved from Florida to Nebraska 24 years ago to take care of my mom, I've lost so many of my friends that are already down there, that were down there. And even though I can't go over there, I grieve them. Today was the funeral of one of them's husband. I would love to have been there for her, but I said, I'm going to come down in July or August, and I think I would be better help to her then. Now she's surrounded with all these people. Now she's in what we call a widow's fog. At times when you go through that, like especially a spouse, I couldn't sleep. I didn't want to eat. I was wired. And then when I did, I just crashed. But you've got so many different emotions running around rampant to you. This one's telling you that one's telling you to do that, and you just want to go and hide. But you do get past it gradually. And if you got someone that you trust that can be there for you, with you, it makes a huge difference. Huge. My sister was with me. She was my best friend, and I couldn't have had anybody better. But the next year, she was gone. So loss is hard, period. I think the most common one we think of, though, is death. But divorce is a very strong one. It devastates the hopes that you had for the marriage. It's gone. It devastates the children. Maybe the father doesn't come around. The children not only lost their home, they've lost their father. And then they start, well, if I was good, maybe he would have stayed. That's their way of grieving. It is. It's a change in a pattern that you're used to. There's a void. I know I speak to seniors here before they get out of high school, right before they get out of high school. And I'll have them take one piece of paper and put on there, okay, what are you going to do after high school? Take out another piece of paper. What could you do if you could do anything in the world? Nothing would hold you back. And you would be surprised how different those two papers are. I want them to be aware that they have that control to make that change. If they become a lawyer because dad and grandpa were a lawyer, they're grieving their hopes and dreams that they had. But realizing it and then go forward, if they really decide they want to be a lawyer, I think that's great. But I'm not trying to discourage them. I just want them to be aware. It's like anything with a death. Any change there, we get to decide every morning when we get up what our day's going to be like. We get to decide when it's grief too. I know I gave a talk at my church down in Texas, and the pastor, I was on grief, and the pastor's just writing like crazy, taking notes. And I said, well, I have a choice. I can be really sad and cry every day that I lost my husband, the love of my life, and how much I missed. We did that and everything. Or I can say, thank you, God, for bringing him to me. He was what I was looking for all my life. And I'm so glad I got to have that time with him. I told him one time, I said, I may not be your first love, but I'm going to be your last. But, the pastor afterwards, I said, don't they teach you that in seminary? And he said, no. I was shocked. That's the first person I called when John died was the pastor. They're not trained in grief. And I admire a pastor that goes on and takes that upon himself. But I've contacted several churches. And I'm a part of Grief Share, too. That's all over the United States. That's Christian-based. Our group met last night for dinner. There were 10 of us. Every one of us has lost our mate. So get with people that will support you. You have one thing in common, and your stories are all different, but you all come together for that closeness, and you become like a family together. That support when you're going through a loss is really, really important. I went to Survivors of Suicide after Don died. There were all kinds of people there. One was a mother who had lost her child. Another lady was the wife of that man. And it might be a parent, it might be a child, but the common bond was there. It was all connected with the suicide. And when you're going through grief like that, find somebody that you can share that with that will understand, not judge. They don't need to be told what to do. And if someone says, okay, you ought to be over it by now, walk away. They're not helping you. No. You have to go at your own pace. And like I said, my heart goes out to people that are stuck in the grief, but we do go at our own pace. And every one of them is different, and every person's different. Yeah. My sister's name was Sharon that I lost. And she was my best friend. And they bought a house down in Texas too, and she just lived 2 blocks over. So we would coffee all winter. It was great. It was great. Yeah. Yeah. Just have compassion for someone that is going through that loss, even if you don't understand it. Try to have empathy for their heart because they're hurting. Either way, I've had a gentleman come in here too that had lost his wife, and he was so thin. He hadn't been eating. He was just shaking so bad. I just felt so sorry for him. And we talked for a good hour. And when he got up to leave, he said, "How much do I owe you?" And I said, "You don't owe me anything." And he just reached over and hugged me. I think he had lost the touch. When we're hurting, we need other people to touch us. That's another loss, the intimacy. Or say you've got a couple that no longer is intimate together. They've lost something, you know. It all happens. There's just so many things. Just or sleeping habits change us. Maybe we're used to going to bed at 9 o'clock, and all of a sudden now we can't sleep at night. It's a change. But the key thing there is to address it and make that change a good change. So it helps you be healthier. But I just can't stress enough that awareness, empathy, understanding, support, it's so key. I know when my son died and I had to go to my shop and get orders out, my dress shop and stuff, and I didn't know you could cry so much. It's a wonder I could see it in my eyes. They were so puffy. And my friend from church had come to stay with me. And she said, "Have you eaten?" And I said, "No, I hadn't even thought about it." And she said, "I'm going to go read you something to eat." I said, "On one condition." "What's that?" "You have to eat with me." But when you're like that, you're just so much in pain that you don't think about things that we automatically just do it every day. I was going to say too that when my son died, it was the 8th of November. And the last time I saw him was 2 years before that on Christmas Day. So for 5 years, Christmas was a trigger for me. A trigger is anything that makes you think that they're gone. They're not coming back. And it really depressed me every Christmas. And then I said, "You know what? He loves Christmas." And I turned it around and I made it a celebration of something that he loved. And then, of course, I went overboard the other way, 7 trees and all blah. But I settled in the middle now. But the key thing there is that I took something negative and turned it into something positive. I'm not afraid of dying. I've been ready for several years, but I'm going to live every day to the most. I'm going to go in there skidding. Enjoy today because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and we can't go back in the past and change it. So live today, love today.
That's right. I love that. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much, Pat. I truly appreciate you taking time to
Mm.
share that with us. And it is grief touches everybody. It just does. And there are aspects of grief, not just death that we all experience anyway,
Mhm.
but just change, the disruption, and that makes so much sense, and we handle it in different ways depending. So thank you so much, and make sure that you put your contact information and your
Okay.
next workshop inside of the chat too.
Yeah,
Um,
if any of them want to come talk to me, that's fine. It'll take them right to my calendar where I got an opening, sir. Thank you, Mary. And thank
You're
you for letting
welcome,
me
Pen.
share my stories with you guys.